Imagine a country sitting on a treasure chest, one so immense, it could change the fate of an entire continent. Picture a land where the ground beneath your feet is saturated with black gold, a resource so valuable that it has shaped the destinies of nations for over a century. This treasure isn't just a legend or a myth, it's real, and it's so vast it dwarfs the riches of ancient kings and emperors. Imagine the wealth of empires, multiplied many times over, all concentrated in one place. Venezuela holds more oil than Saudi Arabia, Russia, or the United States, 14.3 trillion in natural resources, with 303 billion barrels of proven crude oil. This is the world's largest oil reserve, a staggering figure that should, in theory, guarantee prosperity for generations. You'd expect to see gleaming cities, bustling with opportunity, and a population thriving in the glow of prosperity. But the reality is a stark contrast. Modern skyscrapers stand beside crumbling neighborhoods, and luxury is shadowed by hardship. This is Venezuela, a nation where unimaginable wealth exists side by side with deep, persistent poverty. For many, the promise of riches is just that. A promise, never fulfilled. Today, nearly half of its 28 million people live in poverty, struggling daily for food, medicine, and basic necessities. Supermarket shelves are often empty, and long lines for essentials have become a part of everyday life. Once bustling factories now stand silent, office buildings are deserted, and entire industries have ground to a halt. Venezuela's GDP is just over $100 billion, a shadow of its former self, and a fraction of what its resources could support. On the streets, the contrast is everywhere. Expensive cars weave through traffic alongside battered old vehicles, and neighborhoods of wealth border sprawling slums. How can a country be the richest on paper, yet among the poorest in practice? This is the Venezuelan paradox. While Venezuela sits atop trillions in oil, its 2023 oil exports were only $4.05 billion, a mere fraction of what other oil giants earn, the world's largest reserves. Yet the pumps are quiet and the tankers idle. It's like owning Fort Knox but losing the key. The wealth is locked away, inaccessible, as if heavy chains have been wrapped around the nation's future. For millions of Venezuelans, the riches beneath their feet remain out of reach. Hopes are stifled by barriers both visible and invisible, and dreams of a better life are put on hold. Caracas's crumbling buildings stand a silent monument to what could have been, a city that once dreamed of greatness, now marked by decay and neglect. The answer to this riddle isn't just bad luck, it's a story of political ambition, economic missteps, and global power plays. A complex web of decisions and events that have shaped Venezuela's fate. Let's unravel how Venezuela went from a land of promise to a nation in collapse, and explore the forces that turned unimaginable wealth into a $14 trillion riddle. Have you ever wondered why some of the world's richest countries in natural resources end up facing the deepest crises? This is known as the resource curse, a paradox where nations blessed with abundant resources like oil often find themselves trapped in cycles of instability and decline. The resource curse means that a country's natural riches, instead of bringing prosperity, can actually cause more harm than good. Oil, in particular, has a dark side, fueling environmental destruction, political corruption, and economic chaos. Venezuela is perhaps the most striking example of this curse in action. Once one of Latin America's wealthiest nations, it became almost entirely dependent on oil. When oil money started pouring in, the government and businesses shifted their focus away from other vital sectors. Agriculture, manufacturing, and innovation were left behind, as oil became the lifeblood of the economy. By 2024, oil accounted for a staggering 95% of Venezuela's exports and nearly all of its government revenue. The country's fortunes rose and fell with the price of crude. This made the economy dangerously vulnerable. When oil prices soared, Venezuela experienced booms, money flowed, and the government spent freely. But when prices crashed, the entire nation suffered. Other industries, like agriculture and manufacturing, were neglected and eventually collapsed. The country became unable to produce even basic goods, leading to shortages and hardship for ordinary people. Despite having fertile land, Venezuela began importing most of its food. The nation's dependence on imports grew, making it even more vulnerable to global shocks. The entire economy balanced on a single, shaky pillar: oil. Any tremor in the global oil market sent shockwaves through Venezuelan society. This is known as Dutch disease, where booming oil exports make the local currency stronger, but at the same time, make other exports uncompetitive and industries unprofitable. Even if Venezuela wanted to diversify its economy, it was too late. The skills, infrastructure and investment needed for other industries had vanished. Meanwhile, corruption flourished. Billions in oil profits were siphoned off by elites, fueling a culture of greed and impunity. Instead of investing in education, healthcare, or infrastructure, much of the wealth funded lavish lifestyles for a privileged few, deepening inequality. The system was unsustainable and the cracks were growing larger every year. Infrastructure crumbled, protests erupted, and hope faded. In the end, the curse of black gold had taken hold, leaving Venezuela trapped by the very resource that once promised so much. In 1999, Hugo Chavez rose to power, promising a Bolivarian revolution fueled by oil wealth. With oil prices soaring, he launched social programs, free healthcare, subsidized food, education. Poverty rates fell, and Chavez became a hero to many. But the revolution deepened Venezuela's oil addiction. Instead of diversifying, the government doubled down on oil, spending as fast as money came in. State takeovers of companies and farms led to inefficiency and decline. The country lived large on borrowed time, betting on endlessly high oil prices. In 2013, Chavez died, leaving Nicolas Maduro in charge. Maduro lacked Chavez's charisma and inherited a system already cracking. Overspending, neglect, and corruption had hollowed out the economy. The private sector was weakened, and dependency on government handouts grew. All it would take was one shock to bring the system down. That shock was coming. In 2014, oil prices crashed, plunging Venezuela into crisis. The government lost its main source of income overnight. Social programs, food imports, and debt payments became impossible. Maduro's response? Print more money, triggering hyperinflation. Prices soared daily. Life savings vanished in weeks. Between 2014 and 2024, the economy shrank by 70%. The oil industry itself was collapsing. Old infrastructure, underinvestment, and extra heavy crude that was hard to extract. Production plummeted. Venezuela couldn't get its oil out of the ground. Daily life became a struggle. Food, medicine, and even toilet paper were scarce. Long lines for bread and gas became routine. Hospitals lacked electricity and supplies. The healthcare system crumbled. The crisis was now a humanitarian disaster. The world began to take notice. Venezuela's collapse was no longer just about economics. It was about survival. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. As Venezuela's crisis deepened, the US and allies imposed crippling sanctions, targeting the oil industry and isolating the Maduro regime. The goal: force Maduro out and restore democracy, without military intervention. Supporters say sanctions targeted a corrupt regime. Critics argue they worsened the humanitarian crisis, making food and medicine even scarcer. The sanctions became a scapegoat for Maduro, deflecting blame for years of mismanagement. Did sanctions hurt the people more than the government? Yes. Economic collapse and political repression triggered one of the world's largest migrations. Over 7 million Venezuelans fled, doctors, engineers, families, leaving behind a country in crisis. Those who stayed faced blackouts, water shortages, and endless lines for basic goods. The social fabric tore as families were separated and communities struggled to survive. Neighboring countries strained under the influx, while the diaspora sent money home and advocated for change. The image of Venezuelans walking across borders became a symbol of the nation's collapse. The crisis could no longer be contained. As sanctions tightened, the Maduro regime turned to a ghost fleet of oil tankers, hiding shipments to evade detection. The U.S. escalated, citing drug trafficking and designating the Cartel de los Soles a terrorist group. In September 2024, U.S. military strikes began targeting vessels off Venezuela's coast. Over 21 strikes killed at least 83 people, raising global tensions. On January 3, 2026, the U.S. launched a direct strike inside Venezuela, capturing President Maduro. The world watched in shock as the regime's leader was taken into American custody. Venezuela now faces a power vacuum and an uncertain future. Will this lead to democracy or deeper chaos? The final chapter of the Venezuelan paradox is being written now. With military force, the world holds its breath. Venezuela's tragedy isn't unique. Other resource-rich nations like Nigeria and Congo have suffered similar fates, but some, like Norway and Qatar, turned natural wealth into lasting prosperity. Norway built a sovereign wealth fund, investing oil profits for future generations. Qatar invested in infrastructure and diversified its economy. The difference: strong governance, long-term planning, and investing in people. Success comes from leadership, transparency, and resisting short-term temptations. Venezuela had the same opportunity, but made different choices. Can it find its way back? That depends on what happens next. On January 6, 2026, Venezuela stands at a crossroads. The first light of dawn brings both uncertainty and a fragile sense of hope to a nation that has endured years of hardship. As the sun rises over Caracas, millions of Venezuelans wake up to a country forever changed, their lives shaped by the choices that lie ahead. With Maduro gone, the nation's future is uncertain. The halls of power are silent, and the people's voices echo with questions about what comes next. The absence of leadership leaves a vacuum, and the weight of history presses down on every citizen. One path leads to democracy and rebuilding, a long, difficult journey needing wise leadership and global support. It will require the courage to confront the past, the patience to heal deep wounds, and the vision to create a new future. International aid and local heroes must work hand in hand to restore what was lost. The other risks deeper conflict and instability after foreign intervention. Tensions simmer on the streets, and the threat of violence lingers. The wrong move could plunge the nation into chaos, with devastating consequences for generations to come. The challenge: disarm factions, rebuild trust, and revive a shattered economy. Communities must come together, setting aside old rivalries to forge a new path. Every handshake, every repaired home, is a small victory against despair. Venezuela's story is a human tragedy. Families torn apart, dreams lost, but also resilience and hope. In the face of adversity, people find strength in each other. Children still dream, elders still smile, and families cling to hope for a better tomorrow. The diaspora supports loved ones and keeps the world's attention on their homeland. Across continents, Venezuelans send money, share stories, and raise their voices, refusing to let the world forget their struggle. Their spirit is Venezuela's last, most valuable resource. It is the determination of ordinary people that fuels the hope for change, and their resilience that inspires the world. The world must choose: help Venezuela heal, or turn away. The decisions made by the international community will shape the nation's destiny, for better or worse. The fate of 28 million people hangs in the balance. Each face in the crowd is a story waiting for a new chapter, a future that depends on the choices made today. This is a lesson in how quickly fortunes can change, and why good governance matters more than oil. Prosperity is fragile, and the true wealth of a nation lies in its people, not just its resources. If you believe this story needs to be heard, share it. Let the world know that Venezuela's struggle is not forgotten, and that hope still lives here. And subscribe for more stories that matter, because together, we can shine a light on the crossroads of nations and the power of the human spirit.